Mr. Poe.
Mr. Poe!
Mr. Poe! Are you all right? Are you all right, Mr. Poe?
Edgar!
I'm sorry. I haven't been well.
It's all right, Edgar. You're all right.
Edgar, shall we continue then? There's a cemetery next to an old church they call St. John. There's a boy who spends his time there, and he'll stay from dusk till dawn. There's a grave of blackest granite where the boy ever remains. A grave of blackest granite where poor Fanny Allan lays. For
Shrouded forms who start and sigh, and without waking pass him by. Ghostly forms of friends long given, in agony to earth and heaven. And life is but a dream for those whose eyes are always cast on things around them, with a return ever back upon the past. There's a cemetery next to an old church they call St. John's. There's a boy who spends his time here, and he'll stay from dusk till dawn. For this is the one place truly where he truly feels at home, where he can be himself completely, and he doesn't feel alone. For here the spirits of the dead who stood in life before him stand again in death around him, and their will still overshadows him. And life is but a dream for those whose eyes are always cast on things around them, with a return never back upon the past.
there's one more reason why he comes here, and the reason is quite plain. There's a girl who spends her time here, and Elmira is her name. Elmira? It's Edgar.
Edgar Allan Poe?
I know who you are.
Oh, right. Well, I just wanted to say hello. Right. Well, I guess I'll be going then. I'll see you at school.
I've seen you here before.
You have?
Yes, I have. It's nice here, isn't it?
It is.
Calm
Yes.
and comforting.
Yes.
I could stay here for hours.
So could I.
My mother was buried here, right over there.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
It's all right. She died when I was just little. I can barely remember her.
Could I stay with you?
If you'd like.
I would.
It's a free country. Hey, Edgar. Have you ever heard of the woman they buried alive? Her name was Anne Carter Lee. They say she and her husband loved with the love that was greater than any can see. She developed, they say, a peculiar disease, a sleeping aberration, which meant that her body just shut itself down in a strange sort of hibernation. Without breath, so it seemed, for 3 long days, her husband concluded she died. So he placed her corpse in the family crypt and locked her up inside. Two days later, they say, poor Anne Carter Lee awoke to quite a sight. two ancient rotting corpses, to her left and to her right. Trembling in terror, she leapt from the shelf and threw herself onto the floor. And she shook with an uncontrollable dread as she crawled toward the door, where she screamed and cried till her throat turned raw and her eyes were swollen and red. She clawed her fingers down to the bone and pounded her fists till they bled. But, sadly, for poor Anne Carter Lee, nobody came, and if they'd heard, they'd fled. For who do you know that would stay in a graveyard filled with the cries of the dead? And so, 5 years on, when her husband died, they opened the crypt once more. They say that the corpse of poor Anne Carter Lee was found clutching its merciless door!
Edgar met Elmira when he was just 15. He thought that she was by far the most beautiful creature that he's ever seen. It wasn't just her jet black hair that thought it which made his heart race, nor her ghostly complexion, although he broke out in a sweat at the sight of her face. It wasn't just her crimson lips that inspired him to mumble a blubber, nor was it her eyes which, when they met his, made his knees turn as wobbly as rubber. What's more than all of these things combined inspire these thrilling sensations was the way that the two of them shared the same strange and morbid preoccupations. At school, Elmira seemed content to spend her time alone. Edgar thought she seemed older or wiser somehow than anyone else he had known. For a week, every day, he'd follow her home, and each day was the same as before. She would stop at the cemetery next to St. John's, and she'd stay for an hour or more. There she'd stand in the shade of a tulip tree, a gentle breeze cooling the air, and sending its blossoms falling like snow upon her jet black hair.
You should draw a picture.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stare.
You should draw a picture of me.
She said as she tossed her long black hair. So every Friday afternoon beneath that tree they met, and while Edgar drew Elmira, she told him of things you never forget. There she'd stand in the shade of a tulip tree, a gentle breeze cooling the air, and sending its blossoms falling like snow upon her jet black hair. At the end of that year, Edgar knew he must leave for college to earn his degree. He and Jock Allan on this, at least to completely agree. And so, Edgar dreamed of ivory towers, of hollowed halls where blissful hours without end he would pretend, reading verse his truest friend, And as he would, his heart would mend, his soul transcend, his star ascend. Yes, as he would, his heart would mend, his soul transcend, his star ascend. And as he would, his heart would mend, his soul transcend, his star ascend. Yes, as he would, his heart would mend, his soul transcend, his star ascend. Yes, as he would, his heart would mend, his soul transcend, his star ascend. Chuck Allan, ever the pragmatist, saw only a means to an end.
A degree in the liberal arts can help in your hopes of advancement, Sonny. I'll agree to this degree. Just don't waste your time. Army money!
And so, as those wonderful afternoons with Elmira drew to their dread conclusions, Edgar tried to pretend they not end, though he knew it was just an illusion. Before he departed, they met one last time beneath that tulip tree, and to write each other every week, the two faithful friends did agree. They vowed they would love until the day someday they one day were buried, and they secretly engaged themselves upon his return to be married. Elmira's papa didn't care for Edgar, didn't care for her choice of a friend, and he'd hoped that their strange departure would bring their strange bond to an end.
Wait.
Don't forget to write. Rare.
The number of weeks that Edgar was gone came to 44, and during that time he wrote to Elmira a letter a week, sometimes more. Of the 52 letters he faithfully sent from the day they said goodbye, they vowed they would love every day. Not a single one in reply.
As Edgar had dreamed of what it would be, college life came as a shock. It was brutal and savage beyond all of his wildest thoughts. What made it still worse was that this was a school for the wealthy and influential who lived high on the hog, while Edgar lacked even what most would consider essential. For Jock Allan had packed him off to college with barely enough for tuition, leaving Edgar each time he needed supplies having to ask for permission.
Dear Pa, my studies go well. Thank you for sending the $39. To compete here, I'll need to keep up with my reading. For Pa, there are many fine scholars. To that end, could you please just send $3 more, as I'm still short 2 books for class. Cervantes' Don Quixote, and also The Golden Ass.
My boy, though I impose the $3 requested, quite frankly, I cannot comprehend how reading such picaresque trash will help to advance you toward that end.
2 months passed.
Dear Pa, great news! I've written a poem that the publishers Carey and Lee have agreed to include in their next anthology for a small fee. Will you help? At my time, there is so much in being before the eyes of the nation, and if I could just once be noticed, I will surely carve out a reputation.
The sort of reputation, my boy, that you'd carve out as a poet is hardly the sort we'd agreed was the aim of your studies, and you know it!
But Pa,
No!
if you would just help me this once,
I said no!
I would always be grateful.
Have you no honor? This dishonesty, boy, this deceit, this betrayal is hateful. well, I am no longer surprised. Not at all. Not by one single thing that you say or you do.
It was nearly 5 months before one further note was exchanged between the two, and then...
Dear Pa, I haven't a cent in the world. I have no hope I'll be able to stay. Please! I'm desperate, and have tasted not one bite of food now for many a day.
My boy, if you had not just been eating the bread of idleness,
Always the same accusation!
you would have learned that money is earned through hard work, resourcefulness, and determination!
And so, with a bit of hard work and a lot of resourcefulness, Edgar indeed had determined that he would master the art of the poker face bluff and the science of guzzling cheap bourbon. But with no gift for the former and the love for the latter, soon he was drowning in debt and forced to write home.
Dear Pa, I've made many mistakes, which I deeply regret. I haven't a shadow of pride. I haven't money nor friend. I most anxiously wait for your response, for I fear I will soon meet my end.
In the end, Jock Allan refused to pay one more penny despite Edgar's pleas. And so, empty-handed, the boy returned home, 2 years short of his promised degree. April 12th marked the day of Edgar's return, a day in his mind that would always live on. For that day, Elmira was married in the Episcopal Church of St. John. It was also the day that Edgar concluded his hopes for the future were dim. And perhaps more importantly, long engagements were certainly not for him. Oh.
A few years later, after her father died, Elmira discovered at the back of the bottom left drawer of his desk a package he'd never uncovered. Wrapped with brown paper and tied with twine, it contained 52 sealed letters. 52 letters he'd never opened, yet somehow could not quite destroy. Elmira did not open them. She didn't feel the need. The message these letters had come to contain no longer lay within. Time had transformed it, worn it down to a single insistent message, repeated precisely 52 times on the envelopes themselves. To Sarah Elmira Royster from
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar had written. He hadn't forgotten. His promise had not been broken.
Things with Elmira turned out rather badly, but what made matters worse was that back on the home front, changes were brewing in ways he found dark and perverse. For mean old Jock Allan was lately ebullient, which would have been fine except for the cause. He'd found a new wife named Louise Gabriella and fathered a son he named Ross. Thus, when Edgar returned to the house of Allan, he had found he had been relocated. For despite nearly 8 empty rooms, wasn't his that a nursery for Ross was created.
Please stay for as long as you'd like. As our guest, I've made up a room at the end of the hall.
And of those nearly 8 empty rooms, she had chosen the smallest of all.
He reached his home no more, for all have flown who made it so. He passed on out its mossy store, and though his tread was soft and low, a voice came from a threshold stone. of one who he had earlier known. Hell will never show on beds of fire that burn below. A harder heart, a deeper soul. A harder heart, a deeper woe.
In the subsequent weeks between Edgar and Jock, there was nothing but tension and strife. And it all came to a head when Edgar one evening heard Jock complain to his wife.
He shows not a sparkle of affection for me, not an ounce of gratitude. For all the care and the kindness I've shared with him, he's cold and bitter and rude.
He's sullen, ill-tempered, he's miserable, Jock. He's beginning to drive me quite mad.
Truth be told, I've never in all of my years felt any love for the lad.
I sat once upon your knee. I called you father. You called me son. You have broken my heart. You have blasted my hopes. I'm quitting your house. I am done.
Now that Edgar was now all alone, and now he had had no hope, it was on this, the most bitter, the cruelest of nights, Edgar knew he was truly alone.
Always imagine life will get better.
What if it only gets worse?
Thus, having quit the house of Jock Allan and finding himself on the street, he wrote to his brother who says,
Stay with me, at least till you find your feet.
Henry.
These words inspired Edgar's dreams of a life of adventure alongside his brother, traveling far and wide, though the fact of the matter was something quite other. For in fact, Henry lived with their Aunt Muddy Clem.
another unfortunate Poe.
Welcome.
Take little house on a dim little street by the name of
Prosperity Row.
Muddy's
who
husband
died in the war.
left her penniless and without ways or means.
Oh dear.
She got by hemming tall men's trousers.
And stitching up fat ones, split open seams.
And although she had little, her table never had less than a bowl of hot broth.
And a loaf of fresh bread.
And for anyone bearing the name of Pooh.
There were always clean sheets on the
And
bed.
this is where Henry was staying, while for his first great adventure he faithfully saved. But being reunited with Edgar and wee Rosalie, he constantly craved.
Now, Henry was ever the optimist. This was a fact that could not be denied.
But beneath his sunny exterior, there lurked a darker side.
For Henry shared his mother's melancholic inclinations.
A hazard familiar to those with high hopes and exceedingly grand expectations. And not unlike his father, his dreams hadn't gotten him too terribly far.
At least, like his father, not so much farther than down to the local bar. It was there where Henry and Edgar discovered they both shared a love of verse, and more surprisingly, both shared a predisposition for subjects macabre and perverse.
For months, the two were inseparable, seeming to possess almost a single mind. And soon their tales and even their poems became inextricably intertwined.
A vacant street where 3 wild dogs and a rotten corpse do feast.
A widow tries to feed a morsel to her babe deceased.
A graveyard where a tombstone trembles, topples to the ground.
And from the dark and open tomb there comes a dreadful sound. Hush, 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 over there, what's that stirring in the air? Hush, hush, soft and low, hear their voices start to grow. Hush, hush, listen well, as their whispered voices swell. Hush, hush, hear the sigh of the horror drawing nigh. Hush, hush, hear them shriek of the terror they do speak. And the havoc death will wreak, the havoc death will wreak.
matriculated in a literary set. And this is where Edgar and Rufus Griswold one day met.
I'm
For Edgar, meeting Rufus was a blessing.
I hear you're a writer. If you'd like, I'd be happy to take a look.
You would?
It would be my pleasure.
Soon things looked rosy for young Rufus Griswold, who loved Edgar's versification.
This is good.
And Rufus was
Very
an
good.
editor
Very good indeed.
with a growing reputation.
I mean it.
Within the month, Rufus garnered the interest of a publisher named Mr. Bliss.
He's good.
And poems by E.A. Poe went to print almost shortly after this.
Genius.
Revolutionize the world of human thought. Take something small. One must do nothing more than write a very little book. That's all. I know should be simple. Just a few short words, clear and plain. My heart's laying there, but here's the catch. It's the tale must be true to its name.
I think I will for my life's will.
Henry, to celebrate Edgar's achievement, arranged for a little soiree. And he even invited a special guest to join them on the day. And so, Edgar and Henry and wee Rosalie were reunited at last. And even tears of joy were shed as they reminisced on the past.
And Toggle Bay!
They spoke with their plans of how Rosie would come live with them in the house of Muddy Clem.
His heart was full of hope as he climbed into bed. But before his head could hit the pillow, his hopes, they were dashed by a sound he'd come to dread.
Henry?
And as he'd once done before, he pulled up a chair, sat down, placed his hand on his brother's frail arm, and he watched him intently and tried to believe that his brother would come to no harm.
Henry.
Edgar hoped for Henry's improvement. But from his bed, Henry never did stray, just as he never set foot in Nosy Braha, nor strolled down Antagonal Bay.
Henry!
And Rosie was sent to finishing school where, quite frankly, she didn't excel.
Rosie?
And he never saw her again.
No. Please. Don't leave me. No. Please.
It's one more regret in a life full of loss. One more death in a life full of woe. One more reason to return to the grave. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe.
No. No. Leave me. Leave me alone!
Of Henry Auntie Clem.
Oh, Auntie.
A diamond in the rough she was, a rare and precious gem.
Oh, my dear.
She knew that Henry's demise had shaken him right to his very foundation.
I'm just so lost.
And she feared that his too tender heart wouldn't bear the devastation.
Edgar,
And when, like his brother and father before him, he sought a quick cure for his pain. A cure that she knew in his life would become the ultimate bane.
I've seen both my husband and brother succumb to the same affliction. My dear, I cannot stand to watch you indulge in the same deadly addiction.
For Edgar, the bottle offered escape from a lifetime of gnawing perpetual pain. And to it he turned and he turned and he turned again and again and again. Still, the escape was brief and his life became worse than it had been before. Just as the lure of the counterfeit cure he no longer could simply ignore.
Furthermore, he struggled to make ends meet, and his debt grew as deep as his pain, neither of which were helped by the habits he now found he had to sustain. For at 70 cents a copy, his book never managed to cover the bills, and jobs were few or far between for a man with no particular skills. And so, once again,
Dear sir, if any hope for your prodigal son ever stirred, please, I'm desperate. Though I know it has been long since we last spoke, I fear I shall perish.
And though Edgar repeatedly wrote to Jock Allan for aid, time and again, despite desperate appeals, Jock Allan remained unswayed. Strange. As Jock Allan 'twas said, the boy had the heart of a saint, was kind to the sick and the poor. Stranger still, he would never turn a beggar away from his door. But the heart of a saint isn't always free or pure of resentment or pride. And with every donation he received, his growing contempt made his heart become harder inside. Over time, that heart became so envious, bitter, and hateful, until it finally became so dreadfully hard that it fell, stone cold and still. In his will, Jock Allan, he named family and friends, leaving each with something to inherit. But the boy he'd raised for 15 years, not a single mention did merit.
Who's there? Edgar? Is that you? Help me, Edgar. Help me. Help me. Help me!
Nervous, very dreadfully nervous, Edgar became, and he began to fear that he may have gone mad.
A horrible throbbing, a pitiless pain, a fever began to burn his brain.
Filling his brain once again with thoughts that threatened to drive him insane. But into this darker now struggle to cope, there shone a light of possibility.
A taunting ray of hope. Auntie Clem, she had a daughter.
Sissy
Ma?
was her name.
I'm home.
She left for boarding school the day before young Edgar came.
Oh, I missed you.
Now she was done and home she'd come.
In Edgar's darkest hour.
Eddie, there's someone I'd like you to meet. This is my daughter.
Cousin!
She said, taking his hand in hers.
What a pleasure it is.
And ever so lightly the ever so delicate skin of her cheek met his.
I'm Sissy.
She giggled.
A sound that Edgar found so sweet and pure.
It scattered the clouds of fear and doubt
And made him feel clear and sure.
Once again she leaned in close and whispered in his ear.
I think you and me are going to become the best of friends, my dear.
Over the subsequent months of his cousin, Edgar grew ever more fond.
And soon he stopped drinking.
And between them there grew an almost unbreakable bond.
On most days, Sissy Sissy would play the
while
piano.
Edgar did sit and write, and he'd listen as
Just like his mother did once, they
sing songs late into the night.
Well, not quite like his mother.
That was lovely.
Was I sharp?
Not at all.
Did you like it?
Very much.
Soon once again things took a turn from the better when Edgar secured a position for Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, and he started to gain recognition. And so, on a morning in May, stood at the altar with Sissy
At his side,
and his cousin,
his substitute sister,
his surrogate mother,
became his child bride.
I just love weddings.
Oh, Sissy. When all of my hours pass dimly by, and colorless clouds obscure the sky, when restless nights were all I knew, your grace did guide me here to you, and bear me awake. Your words did seem like the sweet music of a dream, and never again a sound to rude upon my slumber shall intrude.
the morning, the noon, the twilight dim, my darling, all have heard your hymn. The past, the present, the future shine, with hope never ending, with love divine. Disappear in your dear eyes, blue as the languid twilight skies, with the sunset's golden glow. How strangely clear your image grows. The past, the present, the future shine, with never-ending love divine. In joy, in sorrow, for good or ill, you know I will
Be with you
A lovely sentiment, but such times are fleeting, and soon a familiar feeling returned.
a nibbling sense of dread which from a lifetime of loss he had learned.
It began innocently enough, one warm evening in June,
As Edgar was writing the tale of a cat,
and Sissy was singing a tune, but then suddenly she stopped mid-verse.
and Edgar looked up to see what the reason had been, and he noticed with horror a trickle of blood,
which went from her lips to her chin.
Oh dear.
though at first Edgar tried to believe it was nothing.
Perhaps just a blood vessel burst.
But soon the signs could not be ignored,
I'm sorry, Eddie.
and he braced himself for the worst. With each passing day, Sissy wasted away, and horrified by the sight, Edgar would leave for work at the crack of dawn and return at the black of night.
And with Sissy asleep in her bed, Edgar would sit at his desk and write tale upon tale and poem upon poem the ghastly, the grim, and the grotesque.
Soon he scored a success with a haunting verse, of which some of you may have heard, involving the love of a certain Lenore and a very persistent bird. And he suddenly found he was talk of the town, with everyone singing his praise.
You really must read his Annabelle Lee and the Mystery of Marie Roget. It's fabulous, oh, in the House of Usher, and his Eagles and Pym of Nantucket. And William Wilson, it's good, very good. I've never read anything like it.
Soon invitations began to pour in to attend literary soirees.
They're going to love you.
In all the best homes of the city.
You're going to be simply amazed.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more. Only this and nothing more."
With hope that flew beside, leaving him wild for the dear child that should have been his bride.
Then again I heard a tapping, ever such a gentle rapping. "'Tis the wind and nothing more. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." But the rapping just grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. I did open wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, when I heard a word there spoken. 'Twas the whispered word, "Lenore." Sweet Lenore hath gone before, with hope that flew beside, leaving him wild for the dear child that should have been his bride. Then in there flew an ancient raven, ghastly, grim, ungainly raven, and above my chamber door it perched and sat and nothing more. Prophet said, "I think of evil," prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Elvis sword, sorrow laden, live within the distant alien. It shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angel's name Lenore. Tell me, is there fallen glee? Tell me, I am wrong. Won't the raven nevermore? Won't the raven nevermore? Won't the raven nevermore? Won't the raven nevermore? Won't the raven my chamber door, and my soul from out its shadow shall be lifted. Nevermore. Mrs. Whitman, Miss Fuller.
Hello? Ladies? Edgar?
Although he admired Edgar greatly, envied his newfound success. And envy can shrink a man, twist what is noble and great into something much less. Thus Rufus set out to discredit the friend who for so many years he had known, which wasn't too hard, as Edgar had already done a formidable job of his own. His affair with the bottle, you see, had resumed, and with it his conduct grown frightful.
Leave me!
Unpredictable, worse, unreliable, even mean, vindictive, and spiteful.
Ladies?
So Rufus suggested a nasty rumor and a toward affair between Edgar and one Mrs. Samuel Osgood.
No!
The wife of an old millionaire. And almost as suddenly as his success arrived, it was taken away.
Griswold!
And he found he was no longer welcome in the very best homes of the day. What's more, he lost his job. Bill Burton, his boss, was fed up, was appalled. And he hired in his place Rufus Griswold.
Quoth the raven, nevermore.
It was February when poor Sissy first read accusations of Edgar's affair, citing a Valentine poem he'd written, in which his love evermore he did swear. This was when Sissy hatched a plan, her love unsurpassing she proved, and mustering every last ounce of her strength, she prepared to make her final move. She'd baked him a turkey pot pie, his favorite. She'd laid out her grandmother's china. She'd combed out her hair, dressed up in her finest, and waited. And waited. And waited. Edgar finally walked through the door at nearly 1:15, after which he'd already had 2 too many bourbon and 3 too many rum.
Happy Valentine's Day,
She said. He hung his head contrite.
I made a clumsy verse, not much.
The first and last she ever did write. Edgar read the poem, and as he did, tears did flow. Sissy gently touched his cheek.
I love you so.
Then she took him in her arms. They danced around the room, and just for a moment were filled with the hopes of a blushing young bride and her groom. Ever with thee I wish to roam, dearest, my life is thine. Give me a cottage for my home, and a rich old cypress vine, removed from the world with its sin and care, and the tattling of many tongues. Love alone shall guide us when we are there. Love shall heal my weakened lungs. But despite the fact that they moved to the country and Edgar remained by her side, love did not heal her weakened lungs.
Eddie? Eddie? Eddie!
happiest day.
When I was a child,
The happiest hour.
and she was a child,
Mine eyes did see
kingdom by the sea,
I've ever seen.
and we loved with a love
The brightest glance
more than love.
of pride and power.
I and my hand,
I feel
I and
have seen.
Little need be said in the months after Sissy breathed her last breath, except to say that during that time, Edgar walked in the shadow of death. His drinking grew steadily worse, his behavior became more erratic and flustered, and he strained to retain the tenuous hold on the thin thread of hope he had mustered. As hard as he tried, though, that hold he soon lost, and a vial he found himself gripping was a fatal dose of laudanum, which he planned later that night to be sipping. But, as anyone knows, plans, they can change, and fortune can turn on a dime, as it did later that night, when Edgar met an old friend he'd not seen in a very long time. Do you remember the woman they buried alive? That just as well could have been me, she said. For once I loved with a love that was greater than any you'll see.
Elmira,
But Elmira had failed to follow her heart, having married for wealth and position. With her husband now gone, though, her heart it demanded a moment of true recognition. I still have the picture you drew of me underneath the tulip tree, she said, and the 52 letters you faithfully sent. Though these letters she'd still never read, Edgar and Elmira vowed once again to love until together the day they were buried. And then they announced their engagement and started to plan for the day they would finally be married.
I have lived all my life in a trance,
Neither living nor
caught
dead,
up in a sinister dance.
holding on by
I know
a thread,
nothing but darkness and gloom,
overshadowed
a
by
persistent
doubt,
sensation of doom,
never venturing
and this dark,
out,
this destructive romance
always
has
holding
left
me
my
back,
fate to unmerciful chance and
never
left me
daring to
inexplicably,
act.
hopelessly sad.
How I
Even
longed
more
for a
unaccountably, utterly mad. And every
in the
hope
years I grieve,
have held
for I
in
believe
easy
the one I loved the most I lost forever.
Every dream from my heart
the plans I
has
laid,
been
I lost my
changed.
fervent, paid the bitter
And
price.
the
Dreadful
horrible
fact
truth
of what I
I
lacked,
must
a heart which held a single true
face.
emotion.
My
Yet
life
the
might
shell
have all been away. All the voices berating, fear never abating. I stood at the door, ever watching and waiting, haunted by visions I never could shake. I have moved through my life, never fully awake. So no more of this madness, no more of this sin. Time to end all this sadness, this sickness within. Though the good and the bad and the best may be gone, though the night has been long, I can now see the dawn. So to dreams say goodbye, I won't lie down and die. I will no longer
life pass me by. I'll be fearless and bold, let my future take hold. I will bury the past, join the living at last. In the world see the good, live my life as I should. Find the joy until now that I just never could.
Edgar and Elmira parted one cold and miserable autumn day, where he vowed to return to her after 3 weeks and to write her while he was away.
Rare!
For his hopes for the future were all tied up in a town that by steamer was a full week away, a town with the prospect of future employ and an end to his life's disarray.
And this was where we met you, aboard the steamer.
Yes, I remember. I was telling you where I was going and why.
A new job, perhaps if all went well, chief editor of a new journal. A stable income.
Yes, and of course, my engagement.
Yes, of course, your engagement.
When you began to tell me a tale.
You cannot escape us,
Edgar.
What did you say? I'm sorry, I'm afraid you've caught me at a bit of a disadvantage. I'm sure we've met. You seem so familiar to me. What did you say your names were?
You'll never escape us.
Your names! I'm sorry. I can't seem to place you.
Of course. I'm William Wilson.
Marie Roget.
Arthur Gordon Pym.
Madeline Usher.
They call me Lenore, and I'm Annabelle Lee.
No.
Edgar?
No! How dare you insult me? How dare you mock me?
Edgar! You cannot escape who you are.
No! A man can change! A man can escape his past!
Then we docked.
He grabbed my bombazine coat.
And my old straw hat.
Then he turned and he rushed from the boat.
There was a man, a most peculiar man.
We followed him.
As we always did.
Whenever he ran away.
And his tale, a most peculiar tale.
Ended up in a bar in Baltimore.
Those who found him there said he showed up in a state of confusion and utter disorientation.
Said he was soaked to the skin and wearing clothes to when Hitch did not clearly
And he
belong.
shouted of foul plots and sinister plans aimed at doing him grievously wrong.
They said he ranted and raved at someone.
Something.
A hallucination.
Some figments of his imagination, for they said he was all
He
alone.
loved alone.
But we were there with you. We were always there with you.
You were never alone.
You see, without you, Edgar, we wouldn't exist.
And of course, without us, he would have been nothing.
For we are your nightmares, we are your dreams, we are all you created, we are all that you are, and all that you've been, all that you loved and you hated. For we are your curse, and we are your gift. We can anchor you, set you adrift, eternal friends and mortal foes, your greatest joys, your deepest woes. There was a man, a most peculiar man.
Then he was sent to hospital, where his condition rapidly declined.
And his
And after 3
tale, a
days,
most
doctors said sadly, 'twas only a matter of time.
So love us and hate us, destroy us, create us, you we will never abandon. Faithful and true, evermore to you, your dark and malignant companion. And yes, in the end,
this danger be past. Let this lingering illness be over at last. Let this fever called living lie in the past. Let this fever called living be over at last.
You awoke in a Baltimore hospital on the morning of October 8th. You could hear, you were quite certain, the sound of somebody whispering.
Henry.
When you opened your eyes, you found yourself in the bedroom in which you slept in as a child. The door to your room was closed, except for a narrow crack. And through that crack, you could see a tall, dark shadow pacing back and forth.
Pa, is that you?
And beyond him, a girl, waiting, anxious, uncertain.
Sissy, my love.
You felt something press against your arm. When you looked down, you saw your mother, Eliza, sitting next to your bed with her arm resting gently on your arm. You sat there with your mother, Eliza, beside you, just like that, for a very long time.
Mama. Mama, I'm sorry.
Remember, my darling, your mother, Eliza Poe. Oh, they said I could sing.
Regret in this life full of loss. No more death in this life full of woe. No more reason to return to the grave. Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe.
There are visions of sins that never will cease. And dark is light, and it's fire of the reality. It's a thought, this is around you and me. All that we see is but the dream within our dream. So here to the stage we bring this play of hope and dread, that we the players did sing the music of the dead, and the curtain. The funeral pall comes down with the rush of a storm. There are thoughts that will not part, that will not leave us in peace. And there are visions dark and sin, and so that never will cease. A darkened fight, a endless pride, a mystery and a dream. A dream so fraught, a wild loss, the sins of immunity. There are thoughts that will not part, that will not leave us in peace. And there are visions dark and sin, and so that never will cease. A darkened fight, a endless pride, a mystery and a dream. A dream so fraught, a wild thought, the sins of immunity. All that we see is like a dream within our